Okay, so we should be live. Screen is shared and the recording started. So I'll get started. Hello and welcome to our What's New webinar series. As mentioned in previous sessions, this is designed to summarize and take you through the changes that have been made to Colleague as part of our latest release, and that was 25.09.02. We released that last weekend. If you'd like to ask any questions, please do so via the Q&A area in this session. If you could try and keep the queries relevant to the session, i.e. based on the new features that are being shown, that would be ideal. This session is also being recorded, and subscribers of the What's New series will obviously be sent a copy of this recording afterwards. We'll also upload it on YouTube and post it out on social media as well. So let's get started. Right. I start by close that down. Come back to that. Right. Okay. So if we start with again just the basics, post and upgrade. There will be a notification that will be sent out Monday morning, so that when users log in, the notification is there, and it will advise essentially if you've been upgraded. So there'll be an option here to click on a link to open up the release notes, which then take you through to the details of what's been updated. Alternatively, if you go to the help file at any time, really, the latest release of Colleague will be top left hand side. So you'll be able to click on that link or click on here for more information. There is also a little summary video, which is always recorded, which gives a sort of 2 to 3 minute brief summary overview of what's going to be in the release. But the release notes will obviously give that granular detail in terms of the changes that have been made. And this session is then also added to those release notes as well as a link, so that you have a more sort of, again, granular walkthrough of the updates that were made as part of the update, part of the build. So we'll go through the release notes top down, starting with the key update of the release, which is always the first item in the release notes, and that's the integration with the Outlook address book. So if I go to a candidate record to demonstrate this, although this update is deployed across the system on all of the email forms, essentially what you've got now when you are creating an email is a means to type in details, email addresses, the beginning of someone's name, and it will bring through potential email addresses that are linked with what you've typed there, essentially the same as it would do within Outlook. What it's doing is it's integrating with your Outlook address book. So if I explain that a little better, I go over to Outlook. Within Outlook, you have an address book, which is against people. I obviously limited this to just this record so that I'm not showing other contacts that I've got in my address book. I've got 930 odd people in my address book. Effectively, those are people that have email addresses that have been created over time, obviously within the system, within Outlook. And those are people now that are accessible within Colleague. If I was to type in an email address, it would bring up obviously people that are being held within that address book. The key thing to note, I guess, is the fact that Outlook, the Outlook application, has its own cache as well, which is built off the back of emails that are in your inbox and sent items. So if an email is in your inbox, it doesn't necessarily mean it's in your address book, which then obviously means it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to automatically come up here. The key thing that would have needed to happen is it would have needed to be added to your address book one way or another, and that can either be done from here. You've got this option of add to contacts. If the address appears like this, if it's a case of when you type in someone's email, it comes up as you're seeing here, then that will obviously mean that the details are obviously linked with the address book and it's all kind of set up as you need it to be. But if it's a case that the email is just an email address, it's in your inbox, not linked with your contact, the email tends to appear like this in Outlook. So that's a telltale sign we're not there in your Outlook address book. But effectively moving forwards, that option is there. Now, with regards to putting this in place, There's a bit of work to be done with regards to the 365 permission, an admin permission that needs to be enabled. That's done by the administrator of your 365 tenant. So if you are using Colleague as your 365 administrator, we will set this up for you. So it will just it be in place and you needn't worry. If you're using a third party for 365 administration, then basically we'll be in touch looking to liaise with that third party to get the necessary authentication for Colleague to be able to access that address book, and then this functionality will be enabled. So it's a bit of a situation where we've rolled it out and we're deploying it site by site, going through different, obviously 365 tenants, getting things all authorized and set up and getting the solution put in place. So if it's not working straight away, it's probably because we haven't been in touch yet. So you could either try and fast track that by contacting the support team and asking for them to put it in place, or we'll be in touch, let's say, just to obviously get it organized. The next thing along is add to list. So within the lists area of Colleague, for the longest time, you would create your list. And then if you wanted to add any records to the list, you would do so from a record. You would be in, say, a candidate record, you'd right click, you'd select add to list, and then you would obviously add that record to the list. Now, obviously it's any record type, doesn't have to be a candidate, it could be any of the record types here. However, we do now have an add to list option, which has been a long time coming. So add to list there will launch a quick search. You can then type in a name, a telephone number, email address, ID of a record, select that record, hit select, and then it will give you an option as to whether or not you want to, it'll obviously have ticked to the list that you're on at the moment. But if you want to select it to multiple lists, then you can do so as well at this point. But if you hit OK, obviously that then adds the record to the list. So we've got a means now to add records to the list from within the lists area. Apologies, it's been a while since, it's been a while coming, but yeah, ultimately that functionality is now there, which obviously helps. And we keep continuing to refine the lists area based on feedback and functionality that obviously people want to see. So by all means, keep coming with the requests with regards to the lists area. The next option along is to do with undo offer. So for placements, there is a undo placement option, but previously there's not been the ability to undo an offer. So if you created an offer in error, the only option really was to just reject that offer, but then obviously that affects stats for consultants. So there was always the request of can you find a way to undo the offer instead. So now there's a way of doing that. Effectively, if you go to an offer and it's a pending offer, you've got the option of the view more menu, you've got an option here called undo offer. You click on that and you'll need to obviously advise a reason why that's happening. So I'll just example or created in error, let's say. Hit OK there, and then that will effectively delete the offer, remove it from visibility, so that it's the offer record has essentially been assigned a type of -5, sort of unnecessary information there. Really, ultimately, the offer from the user's perspective is then gone. It's not accessible. It's not reported on. Essentially, the offer has been removed, and then effectively you need to go to the requirement and essentially create a new offer if that's what you're looking to then do as the next move. The next item along is to do with the attached SpecSieve workflow, specifically against a contact record or against a contact search result. But if I go to a contact, effectively if you wanted to send out a SpecSieve to a contact, there was workflow on the SpecSieve sent tab, and that still stands. You can go to the SpecSieve sent tab, you can click on to send a candidate SpecSieve, look up the candidate, whoever that might be, and then create an email from there, and obviously send it off, and obviously it will record it as a SpecSieve and add candidates to that as well. But for the longest time, every time that functionality is sort of taken through, the question really is why can't we just, when we're generating an email to a contact about whatever we want, also then include a SpecSieve, and that's what we've done. So rather than there being a separate workflow for spec CVs, and then when you're sending generic emails, just using the normal email form. Now, when you're using the email form, there is an option off the attachments drop down for attached specs CV as well. So again, click on that, you look up whoever you want to spec to, and then obviously you can select who you're specking to, and likewise you can obviously do it for multiple records based on IDs or names. You can obviously just look up those records and then they'll be attached. You send off your email or use a template. Better spec CV, there we go. And then from there, effectively, the details are recorded against the contacts and also the candidate as if you'd run the spec CV workflow. So in terms of the spec CV sent workflow, obviously it's recorded exactly like it would have been done if it had been done in here. So it's just simplifying the workflow so you can use the email form rather than have to worry about it being its own separate thing. Although the separate thing still works. Likewise, exactly the same from a contact search. If you were doing a contact search and you want to send an email to a load of contacts, you could then attach the spec CV in that way, rather than having to do the separate workflow of linking a candidate to that search result and doing that sort of separate process. You can just do it from the email form. So that's the update that's been done with regards to attached spec CV. The next one I can't actually demonstrate to you properly, unfortunately. There's a new trend report which has been developed, but in order to deploy the trend report out to all the systems, it means running updates to the data stats table so that the report has the necessary details that it needs to be able to chart previous trends on activity. So that's currently in progress. We've obviously done the report and deployed the report, but we're also then running the stats update through the different systems to make sure that the report populates. So in terms of the report at the moment on my demo system, currently I don't have those data stats in place, so apologies for that. Effectively how it will work is that you'll have a trend report, you'll have a chart for seeing over the course of a period of time, and that could be the last 6 months, last 12 months, up to last 18 months. What were the trends over that time, and then an ability to select different users, compare different users over those trends against different activities, depending on what you selected. And then obviously you have the overview numbers in here as well. You'll have an all users option and ability to drill down into the numbers there. So in terms of how it visually looks, if you have multiple users selected, it will look a bit like this, showing you how different users, which will be against different obviously colors, obviously how they fare in comparison to each other when doing different activities. So that was deployed as part of the build in terms of the functionality of the report within the web app, but the actual data stats again is being run through because it takes quite a bit of time per site to update the data stats so that this report works as it needs to. So we're doing that site by site. Again, it's being done kind of an overnight process, so it doesn't affect performance as it's being updated. So again, it will be rolled out over the course of this month as we go through different sites deploying the data stats. But when it's in place, that will be another report option that will be available to you. The next option along is to do with the support of multiple tenants. So this really is only relevant if you've got a situation where you have one tenant with 365, which might be say colleaguesoftware.com, and then for whatever reason you've got another business or an acquisition maybe, but an entirely different domain, different tenant that you also want to link with your colleague system. You also want to have that recording against the system as well. Previously we've had a kind of single domain set up with regards to the integration. It now does support multiple domains, it's always supported multiple domains, but now supports multiple tenants, if that makes sense. So if you do have that situation, please let us know. Again, there's just some configuration work that we do to enable it, but if you have that set up, we can now record the domains and tenants from say one instance, and then the domains and tenants from a different instance as well. We can record it all against the database. Okay, on some more minor sort of UI tweaks, which we'll go through. One is to do with the show hide contact history option. So again, if we go back to a contact, effectively, if a contact and a candidate have been linked together, there's this option here to show or hide candidate or contact history. So if I jump to a candidate record that's been linked to this contact, the history side of things, it will include obviously the history of the candidate, but also include the history of the contact as well. And then you have this option of hide contact history or show contact history, and then obviously I can bring it through. That is now set by default in terms of its behavior by a global setting. I think previously it was turned off by default. Now you can choose to have it turned on by default, again, based on our global settings. So within global settings, you've got that option. So if I was to go to admin, global settings, company, contact, and you'll see it in here. It says default setting for show or hide history option. So that's been added. Likewise on the company record. So on the company record, on the company history, you've got the hide contact history option here. Again, that's set by a global setting as well. So on the company, you've got this option. Blind. There it is. Default setting for show hide contact history option on history table. Yes, no. So yeah, based on that, effectively, when you are on the company and you're looking at the history tab, the history show hide history option will be selected or not selected by default. So it's again just adding more configurability and default behavior based on client requests. The next option along was the CV parser and the option to rename an original description. So original document description. So again, if I just demonstrate this, if I go to global settings, I'll type in rename. This is best demonstrated if I just parse a candidate CV, but effectively you've got two options now. One is renaming the document description, which previously was defaulted to just say CV for a candidate CV when you're registering it through the parser. The other option is to obviously rename the document itself to something. So you can keep the original name, rename the document description to be a candidate ID or the candidate name or the candidate name and the ID. But I'll put it as keep original name just to sort of demonstrate it. So if I go to parse candidate CV, pick on a candidate CV here, we'll parse. See, register David Payne quite a lot on the system, but we'll continue. Register, hit OK. And then on the Documents tab, this would have previously been called CV, whereas now it's being called obviously the original file name. So if we go back to that original file name that I selected, it was this one. So David Payne LinkedIn profile there. That's why that's been called LinkedIn profile. It's just the name of the file has been retained. And obviously you can see here the actual file name itself is called David_Payne, and then the ID of the record, and that's because the global setting for this is obviously candidate name and ID to rename the document. So you've got two sort of elements there really that are configurable, just on the basis of what clients' preference are in terms of the naming convention of documents, and whether or not they want those documents to be renamed or left as they are. You can obviously configure that in now as well. Another element we've got here is the portals side of things. So just to address, once again, for those that aren't aware, Colleague has a candidate portal and a contact portal for that matter, where you could have a branded version of this that links obviously with your database. You would send the URL to the candidate with a username and password. They would sign in, and then from there, there's a means for them to slowly begin to edit the profile out. We've obviously got configuration settings based around what it's possible here. So if you want them to be able to edit their profile, change their name, their contact information, their current salary and what they're looking for, their availability date, you obviously can enable that if you want to. Alternatively, that can not be enabled. Likewise with skills, you can have them so that they can edit their own skills if you want. Again, it's a configurable setting as to whether or not you do that. Documents wise, whether or not they have the ability to upload any documents or which documents they view within this area, again, is all a configurable option. Checklists is also an option as well. So if you want to configure an onboarding checklist for a candidate, send them login details to this portal. They log in, they go to each checklist item, they upload a file, or they do what they need to do in terms of advising you the relevant information. Obviously, the original purpose behind the portal was about timesheet submission, and charges of expenses and things of that nature. That's all functionality that's there. But yeah, effectively what we've done in this sprint is make it so that the placement tab is a configurable option as well. That used to be kind of hard coded. So if I go to the portal section in the global settings area, you can see in here they've got allow documents, allow placements, allow skills. These are all options to turn on and off. What we've done is we've added this option now here, allow placements in the portal as well. So you can set that to no. And if I was to refresh the portal here, the placements tab would then be ultimately hidden. And likewise, if I did the same for documents or skills, or the checklist one also has a yes no option as well. You can turn on and turn off what you want the candidate to be able to see and do within this portal. So we continue to again add to this area, configure it based on functionality requested by clients as they're using it. So again, keep the feedback coming with regards to the portal. There's obviously bug fixes within the release, as is standard of any software. There's features that obviously we have to tailor and tweak over time based on feedback and based on scenarios that come up where, for whatever reason, either it doesn't perform as expected or it generates an error message of some kind. So we work through those fixes and then obviously we deliver it as part of the build. So all those obviously released as well as part of this update. But they're not really things to demonstrate, they're just there for your information. So if you were curious about a certain bug fix, obviously it's in there to be read through if you want to. But that was the update in terms of the release. Let's check on any questions. No questions. Okay. One other thing I'll cover is, well, in terms of the release notes, just so you're aware, the kind of format of release notes is sort of changing a bit. We're going to be adding, or we have added links through to the various different like WhatsApp videos that have been recorded over time, so that our release notes will consist of obviously a link to the What's New video about that, so you can have sort of the detail there. But also the format in which we type the actual release notes has changed a little bit as well. So we'll give the summary of what the information is about, and then we'll say, what does that mean to you and how do you enable this, as a sort of two kind of key bits of feedback that we get from clients, and certainly in terms of the basics of what they want to know from something. Just tell me what it means for me, and just tell me how to enable it or disable it. So that's what we're focusing on in terms of the way in which we format the information that's in the release notes. Another thing we'll do in this session as well is add in the what's in progress. So obviously we've covered what's new and what was released, but also we've got development that's ongoing at the moment. So what's currently in progress is the PARS job spec to create new requirement. That's almost done at this point. So definitely part of the next release. The next release will be for 25.10.03, and that will come out on the Sunday, the 9th of November. But yeah, parsing a job spec to create a new requirement. That's essentially in the same way, in a manner that you parse a candidate CV to create a candidate record, or parse a contact profile to create a contact record. You'll be able to parse a job spec to create a requirement. Enabling offers as a user group permission basically is a feature that we're doing there, where we can it just mean that a certain subset of users can be using offers and running through the full workflow, whereas perhaps another set of users who perhaps just want to go straight to making a placement will be able to do that. So we'll be switching up a little bit so that bypass offers option is, a user group permission and can be tailored in that way. The other element is GDPR, around GDPR consents, particularly around re-requests. So ultimately at the moment, if you request consent from a candidate and the consent is denied, ultimately you don't have a means to re-request. Also, if the consent doesn't have a response, you don't really have a means to re-request on that. You request consent and then you either have to take no response as denial, or you have to delete the record. So yeah, effectively, or set it manually to yes. So yeah, effectively what we'll be updating is a means to be informed that GDPR consent has been denied. Do you want to, or is still outstanding? Do you still want to request? Do you still want to re-request for consent? Just so that you've got a means to continue working with that candidate if GDPR is for whatever reason sort of either set to no or is doesn't have a response. A licensed user's parameter is another thing as well. So when you're running reports, you'll be able to just tick a button that says do it for all licensed users, rather than having to select only the active user list, only the ones that are licensed. That'll be a little bit easier on the eye. And the API as well is also getting updated with a few things. Dealing with social media links is another one. But yeah, effectively there'll be some other updates that we're doing there around the website plugin as well, and the API. That's all in progress. There'll be some minor UI updates as well. The ability to edit a social media link, so you can see the actual URL that's in the social media link and change it is one of them. We've also got a leads report that we're working on as well, because obviously leads functionality is there, but reporting on leads at the moment is not something that's currently chartable, which is obviously something we want to do. So a leads report will be coming also. But other things are also in progress as well, the minor updates and tweaks, and obviously bug fixes. They're all based on feedback and things that have come through from support. There's also some work around AI as well, but I'll wait until that's over the line before I start talking about that, because that might come in the following sprint after. All right, so that covers the agenda of the sprint. It's a shorter one, I think, than previous, just because of the nature of some of the complexity of some of the work that was delivered in the previous sprint. But yeah, that, we could just check question answers again. No, there's nothing there. Right, okay, so thank you very much for your time, and I'll speak to you again next time. Take care. Cheers. Bye.